Today's story is about a cheating wife and her lover who made some really dumb and pathetic claims. Take your time and enjoy. Is cheating ever forgivable, or is divorce the only option? I can't see my wife as anything but trash now. I've gathered solid evidence using tips from threads, so divorce it is. After a lot of deliberation, it's time to start dishing out consequences. It's tough, but tomorrow she'll have to face the music. I took some paid time off this week, so I can take time to initiate all the repercussions. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and pretend to go to work as usual. After dropping her off, I'll head back to the apartment to get my affairs in order. She'll likely come home like normal on Monday, but I'll give her a rude awakening. Nice, give it to her straight. Take your time and fill us in on the details when you're ready. Let's start with some background and details. I'm in my late 20s, work an office job, and make under $40,000 a year. My wife is the same age, has a professional job, and earns around $30,000. We've been married for about 3 years. No kids yet, but we were talking about starting a family soon. The other man is also our age, my wife's high school classmate, and married with kids. Neither of us had cheated before. It turned out that the other man was three-timing my wife with another married woman and a single woman. It all started over the New Year's holiday when I accompanied my wife to visit her parents for the first time as a married couple. 3 days in, my wife went out to eat with some friends. I felt awkward eating alone with my in-laws, so I headed to a nearby diner. There, I spotted my wife, her friend, and 2 guys who seemed to be their classmates. One of them was the other man she cheated with. They were so engrossed in conversation, so they didn't even notice me. I spotted my wife and the other man exchanging email addresses. As they parted ways, the women and men were all like, "See you later," while I was still eating. My car was right there in the parking lot, but my wife didn't notice it at all. I'll try to give a rough overview of what happened. In late January, the other man emailed my wife. "I'll be in your area soon, wanna meet up?" Gross, right? It was disgustingly brazen. My wife struggles with digital devices, so I set up her phone. Even if she puts a lock on it, I can still access everything. When we got married, we promised no secrets, that we'd talk about everything, and of course, no cheating. But she broke that promise. Of course, I took action. I secretly hired a PI and had them catch the two going in and out of hotels a few times. I figured I had enough evidence, so I asked the PI to recommend a lawyer, and found one to represent me. My wife's phone only had emails, no intimate photos of them. But my lawyer and I agreed to settle things this week. That's the gist of what happened on Sunday. I spoke to my boss about the reason and took paid time off from work this week. You're handling this well. So, what happened next? Monday morning, I pretended to go to work and left the apartment as usual with my wife. I dropped my wife off at our local station and started driving my normal commute route but turned back to the apartment part way. I kept acting as if I was heading to the office in order not to get my wife suspicious. I immediately started packing my things, but there was so little that I thought, is this really all I have? It left me with an indescribable feeling. While I was in the middle of packing, I happened to find out from a forwarded email that my wife and the other man had plans to secretly meet up the next day, Tuesday. I asked my lawyer if I should confront them, but he advised against it, suggesting I gather more evidence instead. So I ended up doing nothing that day, waiting for their Tuesday rendezvous. The next day, I called my wife's parents and told them the truth, asking them to come to our apartment. They rushed over, sweating bullets. While waiting for my wife to get home, with my lawyer and the PI present, I showed my in-laws copies of the emails, photos, and a set of documents including the divorce papers, a demand for compensation, and a restraining order. Finally, at 9 p.m., my wife came home. When my mother-in-law opened the door, my wife looked confused for a moment, but then seemed to realize everything. She froze in the doorway for a while, but when my father-in-law said, "Get in here now," she immediately fell to her knees. Between sobs, she started spouting cliches, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I don't want a divorce." Anything but that. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. "You're the one I care about most, the one I love the most." She went on like that, crying and making excuses. I figured it was pointless to argue, so I just watched her coldly. When she finally stopped crying, my father-in-law pressured her to sign it, making her sign the divorce papers. Then my father-in-law said, "We'll handle all the financial matters. We're truly sorry for the trouble," and bowed deeply. That very night, they took my wife back to their place with nothing but the clothes on her back. She left her phone behind, effectively cutting off contact between her and the other man. I sent the other man a certified letter, and were set to start settlement negotiations with my lawyer present on Saturday. We didn't have any explicit photos of my wife and him, but the PI did catch them kissing in his company car. We plan to use photos of them getting cozy in front of a hotel as evidence. Maybe we should ask his company if it's appropriate for employees to take personal breaks with married women during work hours. By the way, the PI happened to catch the other man with those other two women while tailing him for my wife's case. Did your wife not realize he was three-timing her? The other man, the wife, the other women, they're all idiots. Then on Tuesday night, I called my in-laws and wife to the apartment and gave them the evidence photos. My wife was shaking like a leaf as she looked through the pictures. I went ahead and exposed the other man's other affairs too. It seems my wife thought he was only pursuing her, so learning about the other two women sent her into a frenzy. That can't be. He said he loved me. She actually believed her affair partner's words. I got a good laugh out of seeing her lose it. That day, I laid out my terms, which is no division of assets. She pays me $30,000 in damages, and I demand $50,000 from the other man. My father-in-law said, "Whether it goes to trial or settles out of court, we'll do everything you ask." A broken relationship can't be mended. I'm truly sorry. When he left with my wife, he was furious, yelling, "Hurry up and get in the car. Move it." He grabbed her by the hair and shoved her into the car. Good thing your father-in-law was so reasonable. There were plenty of chances to stop things before your wife and the other man got involved, so why didn't you? I did try to put my foot down, but apparently women are weak when a guy comes onto them. At least, that's what my wife claims. Then on Friday, my lawyer made an appointment to visit the other man's company in the morning, and he is there now. I'm waiting at home. Well, I don't really want to go anyway. In cases like this, they usually advise against the husband going to the company himself, but my lawyer is different. I'm supposed to get a report from the lawyer in the afternoon. I went to work on Monday. As for my wife, on Wednesday morning, my father-in-law called to tell me he'd informed her workplace that she's fallen ill and is recovering at her parents' home. And she will be back to work after Monday at the earliest, depending on some test results. I could hear my wife in the background saying, "I want to talk to him on the phone," but my father-in-law immediately shut her down, saying, "Be quiet." Once you've witnessed their composure crumble firsthand, there's no going back. Getting dragged to your wife's hometown for New Year's, only to see her all flirty with her old crew, ouch. There's been a little progress, so I wanted to give an update. Great, lay it on us. So after that, I was packing up my wife's stuff to send back to her parents' place. I was being pretty careful boxing things up since there were some fragile items. While sorting her cosmetics, I found a micro SD card hidden in a small pouch. I hurriedly loaded it onto my computer to check the contents. The SD card had videos of the two of them going at it and everything. I thought it was weird that her phone only had all lovey-dovey stuff, but to think she had it stashed away like this. Well, she must have let her guard down completely. She was probably having a blast cheating and never imagined she'd get kicked out the moment she got home. Also, I confiscated her 2 bank books, cash cards, and credit cards. So she literally got shoved into her dad's car with nothing but the clothes on her back. I checked her bank statements. I verified the total balance across both was over $10,000. When I told my father-in-law the amount, he said, "Do what you want with it." But I couldn't really do that. So I told him I'll return it when this is all over. He said he'll come by Saturday afternoon to pick up her belongings except for the furniture. I'm glad dealing with my father-in-law has been smooth. It's huge that your father-in-law is on your side. This might be hard to say, but could you identify for sure that it was your wife and the other man in the videos on the SD card? Absolutely. I was amazed by the phone resolution. In the video, after they finished, the other man filmed my wife with her phone. She noticed and chased him around stark naked, playfully saying, "No, stop it." His junk was in plain view too. The first images on the SD card were from a trip with me and my wife. It makes me sick that they were saved together on the same card. I put the SD card back in the small pouch and hid it behind the back panel of a kitchen drawer. No way I'm returning that. Tomorrow is the big meeting at my lawyer's office with the other man's family and his wife's family. This is it. My in-laws are leaving everything to me and my lawyer. If the other man's wife demands anything, they'll bring their own lawyer to negotiate. At the meeting tomorrow, grill them by asking, so you've been secretly carrying on this long affair since way back when? Really dig into their history. Actually, I was my wife's first. The other man was popular in high school but didn't really associate with my wife's group. The plan to summon him was to send a contents-certified letter with only the photo of them about to enter the hotel, informing him of the meeting date. We wanted him to think that photo alone was weak evidence, so he'd come in cocky, saving the video as our trump card. My lawyer said, "I'd like you to let me hold onto your wife's phone and SD card for now," so I obediently handed them over. Then the day of the meeting arrived. We started strategizing at the law office bright and early. The young employee who came to my place before grinned and whispered, "We've got some new info." The boss said to reveal it bit by bit. So just nod along. It seems like they've got some scheme cooked up, but I decided to play along. 9 a.m. on the dot, the other man showed up with his parents and a man claiming to be from his lawyer's office. The other man's lawyer argued at first, my client's goal wasn't to sleep with her. Your marital relationship was already falling apart, and he was just providing advice about that. The other man chimed in arrogantly, "Yeah, I was only giving advice. I didn't do anything wrong, so I ain't paying any settlement." He even had the nerve to say, "Besides, you know I'm a ladies' man, right? If I put the moves on, women come running. That ain't my fault." That comment made everyone in the room snicker. But I saw him butt into my wife's lunch with her friend during that New Year's visit and saw the two of them exchange email addresses. And at the time, my wife and I had a perfectly normal relationship. Where's the evidence it was falling apart? I was pissed at their claims, so I said to the other man's lawyer, "Precedent shows that entering a hotel room is damning, regardless of whether sex occurred. Even if you are in the law office, you don't even know that?" Then I shot back at the other man, "That much self-confidence is just pathetic. I saw you asked my wife for her contact info. Quit lying through your teeth." The other man clearly didn't think I'd witnessed it myself. He frantically denied it. "That's because she asked me to hear out her marital woes. She's the one who propositioned me." He made excuses desperately, but his panic made it obvious he was lying. The other man's wife and her parents arrived a bit late. The other man's family had already fallen silent. My lawyer gleefully launched into his spiel. "My client's wife's family has given full authority to my client and myself. We're here to discuss the affair between my client's wife and this gentleman, with potential legal action on the table." It all started over the New Year's. My lawyer seemed to be having a blast recounting various details, but I'm getting tired of writing it all out. Forgive me for condensing it. After they exchanged emails, the other man apparently pressured my wife relentlessly, threatening her like we met up once already. "So you don't have an excuse to give your husband, right?" She says that's how he coerced her into a physical affair. This was news to me too. I was a little relieved my in-laws weren't there to hear it. Apparently my lawyer found this out by analyzing my wife's phone. My lawyer's heated speech continued on and on. He laid out the detailed timeline of the affair, from late January up to this past Tuesday. The other man and his family went pale. The other man's wife and her family turned beet red. But there was still more to come. My lawyer then presented similar photos of the other man with a married woman, and photos of him with a single woman too. It turned out she was underage, and there were clear shots of the other man handing her money. This must have been the new info they mentioned. The other man's wife went ballistic. The other man's dad decked him. "Gimme a fucking break. Why should I have to get hit? Get off me, you shitty old man." The other man raged, but his dad kept punching, yelling, "This is your damn fault. You still don't get that?" He straddled the other man and wailed on him nonstop. It took all the men in the room to finally restrain him. I tried to comfort the other man's wife, but she screamed, "I don't need your pity. "Don't talk to me," and slapped me hard. Why am I getting smacked around? I was a little confused by the situation. It was utter chaos. In the end, the other man's family waved the white flag. Divorce was a done deal for him and his wife. As planned, I demanded $55,000 in damages from the other man. He agreed to wire $25,000 on Monday and the remaining $30,000 by the month's end. It seems his wife made some really steep demands of her own. As for his wife seeking damages from my wife, she said she'd discuss that with my wife's family. I told her we're filing for divorce on Monday, so claim whatever you like. We drafted an agreement letter on the spot with the lawyers present. I never got a chance to play my trump card video. That's my only regret. Then my lawyer told the other man, "Yesterday, I visited your company and requested disclosure of your work records." The other man's family slunk away dejectedly. I could really see how people seem to physically shrink in situations like this. Good work. By the way, where'd those photos of the married and single women come from? Were they on your wife's SD card too? The photos all came from the data the PI gave us when they caught the other man going in and out of hotels. Anyway, the rest of the story. I got the phone, SD card, and USB back, and I went home. I was napping in the living room when the doorbell rang. It was my father-in-law in his work clothes. "How'd it go?" He asked about today's meeting. So I told him the facts as is. "I see. Okay, got it. I'll take what I can carry myself today." Saying that, he diligently started loading the boxes I'd packed into his car. He'll take things that won't fit in the minivan tomorrow. Child support will be nearly $10,000 a year for around 20 years, huh? "It's tough for the other man," he commented. I replied, "Well, that's not my concern. But it seems his wife is going to claim damages from my wife." Then my father-in-law said, "That's not for you to worry about. Actually, my daughter is writing an apology letter. I'm bringing a 2-ton truck tomorrow to haul away the big items. But would you agree to see her one last time?" He went on, "Of course, you're free to scold her, curse her out, and even hit her if it comes to that. She insists on making amends, but you can't really accept that, can you?" I feel the same way. My father-in-law shook his head, dumbfounded. Then my father-in-law took an envelope out of his breast pocket and handed it to me, saying, "This is separate from the settlement, it's a gesture from me. Please accept it." The envelope was thick. I glanced inside and saw nearly $20,000 in cash. I can't accept this. I've already formally demanded $30,000 from her. I hesitated to take the envelope, but my father-in-law practically forced it on me, insisting I'm making her pay the full settlement herself. Just think of this as the money that was in her account. I tried to give the envelope back to my father-in-law several times after that, but in the end, the $20,000 in cash ended up in my pocket. According to my father-in-law, my wife is expressing words of apology, but seems preoccupied with the confiscated phone. Is she afraid of her misdeeds coming to light? Even though I already know everything. When my father-in-law was leaving, I entrusted him with my wife's bank books, credit cards, and her phone. By the way, I completely wiped the data on the phone and USB clean. I didn't return the SD card she'd hidden away. As for the negotiations with my wife and the other man, things turned out to my satisfaction. As a parting shot, I told them I don't care if they get married or whatever in the future, they can do as they please. "So, are you going to meet your ex-wife?" "That's the plan." I gave my father-in-law back her phone with the contents still confiscated, and I didn't let him take home the SD card. So she's probably dying to know where it is right about now. I've been hurt enough already, I'm confident I can handle anything else at this point. Also, some of you might be wondering why my own parents haven't shown up, but they live far away. They're both like, "Do what you want, we'll be here to pick up the pieces." I think they mean it as encouragement. It's not like I'm going off to war, so the pieces comment is a bit much. But I appreciate that they seem to get it. She'll probably beg you to reconcile while crying. Yeah, most likely. Well, I've got plenty of evidence, so I'll crush any hopes of that thoroughly. It's obvious you've got this in the bag, but I'm looking forward to the final report. Okay, things have settled down for now, so I figured I'd give an update. Just before 2 p.m., my wife and mother-in-law showed up. Prior to that, as promised, my father-in-law and brother-in-law had already arrived in a 2-ton truck. When she entered the living room where us 3 men were waiting, my wife said, "I don't know how to apologize to you." So I wrote down my current feelings and brought it and handed me a cute envelope. But she was obviously restless, glancing around anxiously. She's probably concerned about the whereabouts of the SD card. She's so transparent. Little does she know, I have the SD card. My wife and mother-in-law were crying, saying we're so sorry for our good-for-nothing daughter. If you haven't submitted the divorce papers yet, please reconsider. I'm truly sorry. I know you can't forgive me, but please give me one more chance. If we end things like this, my feelings of atonement won't get through to you. They prostrated themselves on the floor. My father-in-law and single brother-in-law watched this scene with bitter expressions. I invited my wife into the bedroom so we could talk one-on-one. By using a cardboard box as a table, I set a tablet on it and told her I'm going to record this. She gave a small nod. First, I skimmed the apology letter she'd brought. But the contents were so shallow, I gave up on reading it partway through. It was full of lame stuff like "I love you" and "I want to start over." I began recounting everything that had happened in order and keeping my voice low, so it wouldn't carry to the living room. I laid out all the facts I'd uncovered in detail, from the first incident during our hometown visit up to the present. I was simply stating the facts, but my wife, who'd been listening in silence, started trembling. I had my wife take out her phone and instructed her to place it in front of me. I told her I was going to look through it now. Checking the contents of her phone, I saw she'd deleted all the emails. Well, that much was to be expected. I proceeded to erase all the data that involved me. I erased the remaining photos, call history, and emails and left no trace of my existence. My wife seemed to realize partway through and hastily tried to stop me, pleading tearfully. "I'm so sorry for doing something so terrible in a moment of weakness and hurting you. You're aware you hurt me. But you were head over heels for him. At first, I never thought it would turn into an affair. Really, I thought it would just be the one time. You were on cloud 9 when he called you. I warned you, didn't I? That cheating meant immediate divorce. You're the only one who matters most to me. The only one I love. I'll cherish you for the rest of my life." She clung to me desperately. It seemed so comical that I almost laughed. But I managed to keep calm and continue talking. "How can you say that with a straight face at this point? But you were considering having kids with me, weren't you? When I suggested it last year, you said not yet, remember? Then you brought it up after being with him. Whose child were you planning to have?" Around this point, she started sobbing, her shoulders shaking. "Please, just hold off on the divorce. I'll do anything you say. I can't believe a word out of the mouth you used to enjoy your trysts with him. Sorry, but you seem like filth to me now. I'll do anything. Just tell me. Forgive me, I'm sorry, I don't want a divorce." Does she think crying will make me forgive her? Gushing water from her eyes and nose, my wife desperately tried to stop me from leaving. But I couldn't deal with it anymore, so I said it's too late. My lawyer has seen the contents too. I've erased all my photos from this. Any trace of me is gone. And the nudes and selfies you thought you deleted have been restored and copied to this USB, I said. She hurriedly checked inside that pouch and crumpled in despair. Your father agreed to all my demands. I'm submitting the divorce papers tomorrow. We'll be officially strangers, so goodbye. My wife could only cry now, unable to even stand. I called in my in-laws and had them take her to the living room. Any trace of me is gone. It felt damn good to watch that. Back to a boring daily life starting tomorrow, but this has made me realize a boring daily life is the happiest kind. Thanks to my lawyer, the office staff, the kinda sketchy PI folks, and my father-in-law, so I managed to wrap this up with a pretty good outcome. On Tuesday night, my wife went to stay with her parents. Today is Sunday. Everything ended in a single week. It all happened so fast, I'm shocked myself. Now I'm just waiting for the settlement money to be wired. Did your wife give up and go home quietly? My brother-in-law had to drag her out. She was hiccuping and sobbing the whole time. It's been quite a ride, but the divorce has officially gone through. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you who watched over me. She tried to aim for one last shot at reconciliation with that letter, but she got shot down. Her hometown social circle is implicated, so unless her whole family moves far away, it'll be tough for her to recover from this. As long as her dad stays on top of things, it should work out somehow. But man, what an outrageously troublesome daughter. Thus, it concludes the story of the miserable cheating wife who aimed to stop the divorce with a letter as her final chance. By the way, in cases like this one where the other man threatens and coerces someone into cheating, as he did, there's a very good chance they could be punished for some kind of crime. The wife should have handled it properly instead of obediently going along with the other man's demands. She ended up just as guilty as him in the end.